everyone. This is update for June 6, 2023, day 468 of the war, end of the date update. It's going to be a very short update, mostly focused on this dam and situation on the front line in Ukraine, obviously. So first, let's talk about the dam. Sorry, yesterday I did not, didn't talk about it. It was sort of concurrently developing situation. So I just want to. There were a lot of questions, and I just want to. The main question was who did it, right? I cannot say it for sure because I don't have any forensic investigation. Nobody has it, so I can only contemplate and just sort of share my opinion. In this case, I do have strong opinion about the situation. Unlike previous ones where I really could not say either way. In this case, it's most likely that it's Russian side who blew up this dam, and let me explain the reasons why I think so. So first, there is logic. Okay, Russians wouldn't do it because it prevents flow of the water to Crimea, right? So because it actually feeds from this reservoir. So let me just explain first, and let me go a little bit back. So there is another dam here in Zaporizhya. So all of this water south of Zaporizhya, all of this is essentially was held by this dam. So as you can see, that's fairly sizable. It's not. I don't think it's actually. I think it's actually one of the smaller ones in terms of the hydroelectricity potential, but nevertheless, it's still large. So going back to this Crimea and this water that's that goes to Crimea from this dam, like it's like the channel starts right before the dam. There is a claim. Okay, Ukraine would like to do it because they want to prevent feeding water into Crimea. So from that perspective, Ukraine could have done it like a long time ago. If you remember, Ukraine liberated these territories, I think early November. So there was plenty of time to do it. It was never done by Ukrainian side, never, even though all this time Crimea was getting water. So that's sort of in the reasoning, like, okay, why this would not be Ukraine, right? For Russia, supplying water, yes, it's gonna be a problem, but this is gonna be very delayed problem in a while. So there is plenty of water in Crimea right now, so there won't be sort of drought, any sort of problems. There's they basically, there are like sort of natural reservoirs in Crimea. They are full with the water, so I would say they will not see shortages probably till at least fall, and possibly even much longer. So there is definitely no immediate problem in Crimea, and I would say not even, I would say, relatively medium term. And given that government bureaucrats, they never think long term. It's always quick solution. What's going to happen in 10 days, in a month? Then beyond that, their time horizon is becoming I would say hazy. They don't care about anything long term or even medium term. So from that perspective, from Russian bureaucrats' perspective, okay, it's not a problem at the moment, not going to happen in a month, not going to happen in 2 months. So okay, it's not a big deal for now. And later someone else will be figuring this out, the situation. So the second thought about this is the following. Okay, Ukraine had several small bridgeheads, as I mentioned before, in I think end of April, and they still had it as of sort of yesterday. And they were actively amassing fleet of small boats, basically like fisher boats, effectively, to carry, to basically land their significant number of troops. Well, I would say close to brigade or so. So there was, it was imminent, basically, right? That attack. Problem for the Russian side, they did not have troops to cover. They did not know where it's going to happen. So as you can see, this front line along the Dnipro River is pretty huge, and Russian side did not have enough troops. So basically, Ukrainian side could choose to attack anywhere, and eventually it would be successful. Or it can attack simultaneously in 2-3 places, and at least one would work out, basically, right? So even if 1 or 2 were sort of stopped, other ones would not be stopped. Simply, Russian command does not have troops to control entire along the river. And the reason for that is because obviously all of the troops right now are concentrated here, Zaporizhya, central Donbass, and North Donbass. So everything is there, and obviously some of it is North Lugansk. So they don't have any spare troops because the offensive started and they cannot pull anything because it's all tied up on the main front line. As you can see, they don't even have resources to throw into to defend Belgorod effectively. So essentially, this Shebekino is ghost town. People abandoned it. There's nothing there. It just Ukrainian side also doesn't have enough resources to really move forward, and for political reasons, it's not being done as well. But effectively, there is simply not enough resources to defend actual Russian territory, which creating huge political problem for the Russian president, for the Russian political top, and so on. And just to tell you how little troops there or what kind of low quality there is that that commander that I mentioned yesterday, who was killed in action in Novodonetske, he was head of this battle group Belgorod. Basically, it's just ragtag team of conscripts, border patrols, and some small amount of regular Russian troops, like probably not more than a couple companies. Basically, pretty much nothing in quality is terrible, and that's why he got killed, because he was literally on the battlefield. And so as you can see, the situation is somewhat desperate here for the Russian side. So they don't have anything spare to defend here. So and they see that this is imminent, right? So the only reaction to slow down at least somehow and sort of cover flank is to basically blow it up and have the water for at least 3 days. And the Ukrainian hydrological authority says it's going to be at least 10 days. So we'll find out, maybe 10 days, that's fine. But basically they bought enough time to kind of like deal with this offensive here in Zaporizhya area. Or at least they feel like in desperation, you do desperate things, basically. And that's what's happening there. Then the second sort of argument from a Russian side, okay, it's going to be easier to actually ford the river because it's obviously narrower and it's shallower and so on. But, well, it's actually not true. It's actually going to be harder and it's actually becoming much more problematic. The reason is because there will be, this kind of like muddy brown sort of mass for a while, and there's no trees, no nothing. So approaching and going through it, you're going to be totally exposed to artillery fire, shelling, all of that. And it's sort of to get into the water and then to get out of the water, you're experiencing the same problem. So it's going to be actually much more challenging. It's basically kind of like a natural obstacle that you need to overcome, getting into the water and then getting out of the water. And it's you becoming, during that time, your excellent target. So as you can see, this obviously actually creates not only temporary problem for Ukrainian side, but probably a little bit more longer term problem for Ukrainian side. So for that reason, there was this meeting of Ukrainian military top, this defense council, and apparently they were rethinking how to move forward with this offensive, because effectively important tool was taken out. And if you remember, in April I was showing you that one of the ideas, an important part of this, it was important to actually cross the river here, establish bridgeheads, and actually try to move towards Crimea. And that sort of important pillar of the offensive was effectively, if not completely taking out, significantly diminished effectively. So that really creates a big problem for Ukrainian military for some time. So this is sort of my logic why I think, and just want to add, it will create quite a lot of cascading problems. So first of all, there is this nuclear power plant in Belgorod. It's on standby right now, so there is enough water to cool it down, but you effectively cannot restart it to generate, to basically to supply electricity to the power grid, or maybe you can at most use just one reactor out of 6. Effectively, it's basically dead, meaning that it's not going to be usable for as long as you're not going to fix this dam. And fixing that dam will, as you can imagine, will take a really long time and a lot of resources. So essentially, you not only took out supply of electricity from like this hydro energy, right? But you also took out largest nuclear power plant in Europe, actually, and it generated, I think, 20% of Ukrainian electricity. Was the cheapest. It's cheapest. Just for the ref, so for those who don't know much about electricity, hydropower and nuclear are the cheapest sources of electricity. So effectively, you really created a huge problem because you significantly undermined competitors of Ukrainian economy even after the war, because it will take a long time to fix this whole situation, and it actually has an immediate negative result, because there is iron smelters in Kryvyi Rih, and it had to stop because it's using a lot of water, right? And probably I don't know if the Zaporizhya will stop, but this was one of the also cheaper, like it was extremely competitive, basically, one of the most competitive in the world. So again, it's taking out. So this really blows huge hole in Ukrainian export and exporting steel. You know, used to be one of the biggest sources of FX for Ukraine, foreign currency. So again, you really creating a lot of sort of cascading effects. There are other plants here in Nikopol. I think they do ferroalloys that are used actually to improve quality of steel. So basically, you're really creating big, huge hole in Ukrainian industry. So that's even economically, it's disastrous, and it will be felt by Ukraine pretty much immediately, as I said, because this large smelter was shut down. Don't know what's going to happen there, but at least for now, it's down. And as I mentioned before, Ukraine desperately needs foreign currency, or basically value add profits to sustain the situation in Ukraine. Obviously, there is a lot of financial aid, and it's the main source of sort of survivability. But like after the war, there is all of that will drain immediately, and then the results will be devastating, because one of the major drivers is out as well. So from Ukrainian perspective, it's negatives are tremendous, let's put it this way. So that's why I want to reiterate that most likely this is done by Russian side, and it's very unfortunate, because it's the negative effect is really tremendously underestimated. And I'm not talking only because of their water going down, but economic negative effect is tremendous on Ukraine. So hopefully this helps to understand this situation. Now let's actually generally strategically talk about this whole offensive. And so if in one word, it looks like it bogged down, and the resources have not been used. All of the resources that Ukraine has, for sure, it has. I don't have all of the newly created brigades because I will show them once they are on the battlefield, or it's very confirmed that they're somewhere close to the battlefield. But Ukraine has many more brigades, so definitely resources have not been used. But it's basically kind of like a false start in some ways. It's turning into. So all of those resources that they were spent in first couple days of the offensive may be actually wasted resources, unfortunately. Now let's quickly walk through the front line. So we're going to start with the north and then go down in clockwise fashion. So the situation along the state border is the same. The situation in this Novodonetske looks like it's basically this village. Russian troops don't have control over it. Effectively, this Russian volunteers, so RDK, is operating there. The Shebekino is also a ghost town, also kind of like no man's land. There is fighting here, so it's turning into kind of like this gray zone here along the state border on the Russian side. And as I said, Russia does not have resources to throw at this problem, with the exception of conscripts, but they obviously poorly motivated, trained, and so on. And there's simply not. The problem even not even that, but even they don't have enough equipment. Effectively, that's a real problem there. Now let's jump to North Lugansk front line. Things here are more or less quiet. There are non-stop fights in this large force, but this is mostly tactical fights that really don't define sort of anything in this war right now. Now let's move to North Donbass front line. So there is some tactical attacks in Belgorod, which never stops from Russian side. And then Ukrainian side, let me show you a little bit better, continuing sort of putting pressure straight north of Bakhmut and actually also south. Sorry, I didn't show the arrow, but so far it doesn't look there is much success. Then also Russian troops trying to counterattack here, a little bit south of Ivanyivsk, and also without any sort of success. So this is more or less status quo. Snail's pace move for Ukrainian side, maybe at best, and which also means that resources are not used wisely and not efficiently, and that really means that the chances of true breaks through the front line are so far very little. Now let's move to central Donbass front line. Things here are, I would say, somewhat similar. There is a report of very strong Ukrainian attack here towards Pisky, and actually some success. We'll find out tomorrow if it's just initial success and sort of turning into nothing, just a dent. And then also Russian attack here in this area as well. Then never-ending attacks in Marin because they don't go essentially anywhere here. Otherwise, this section of the front line is pretty quiet. Now let's jump to Zaporizhya front line. So here the western part is sort of quiet and central, I would say. The only active area is this eastern part around Velyka Novosilka, and even their activity went down tremendously. So the only place where there was really active fighting was this village Novodonetske. So Russian troops counterattacked Ukrainian side, and they pushed a little bit Ukrainian side back. So now this Novodonetske is contested. So basically, both sides are in a village. Sort of there is fighting going on. Outcome we'll find out. But so far, again, this is what I would like to sort of mention is the there were dents in Russian defenses, but there is no penetration. And the what you really need is penetration, and it's okay to spend resources, to lose resources doing penetration, but if you sort of stop halfway and abort it, then all of the resources that you spent on already, basically they becoming total waste, total write-off, and it's almost like a double negative for you. So that's a dilemma I think Ukrainian command is facing at this point. It does have more resources, as you can see here, and there are more that are not shown on this map. But the question is, we'll find out if they're ready to commit those resources and basically make a really decisive move. Because so far it was strong pressure, but it was not really like true decisive move at this point. And then there's also report. I just want to kind of mention this because there are reports from the Russian Ministry of Defense that they destroyed Leopard 2 tanks. That's actually not true. So far, they have not destroyed a single one, and there were reports that they were being used here to attack from Zolota Niva towards Novodonetske. So that was the sort of reports where they're being used. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and till next time. Bye bye.